When we think of a dictatorship, we usually picture rule through physical force. Keep the people scared, and they stay in line. George Orwell's 1984 explores a much darker approach. The party seeks to completely annihilate the human soul. The story unfolds in Oceania, one of 3 massive superstates locked in an unending conflict. This permanent state of war has a highly specific domestic purpose. It justifies extreme austerity. By keeping the population exhausted, hungry, and focused on an external enemy, the ruling elite maintains a total grip on society. This is the world of Winston Smith, a frail, introspective worker in the outer party. His daily job at the Ministry of Truth involves systematically rewriting historical records, deleting any information that contradicts the state's daily narrative. But Winston harbors hidden resentment. He buys a blank diary and commits an act of treason simply by writing down his hatred for the state's figurehead, Big Brother. This abstract frustration becomes a concrete rebellion when a coworker named Julia slips him a note reading, "I love you." Their illegal relationship is a desperate attempt to find genuine human connection in a sterile world. This creates the core tension of his life. Winston wants to resist, but he is trapped inside a system specifically engineered to monitor and punish hidden intentions. The outermost layer of the party's control relies on constant, inescapable observation. Every home and public space is equipped with a telescreen, a 2-way television that broadcasts state propaganda while simultaneously watching the citizens. Because you never know exactly when you're being monitored, the mere possibility instills severe paranoia, forcing everyone to aggressively police their own behavior. Let's look at how the Ministry of Truth manages information. This diagram shows an original historical event being actively erased and replaced by a fabricated data point. If the party reduces the chocolate ration, workers like Winston alter the old documents to say the ration was actually increased. That fake data point then ripples forward, overwriting all connected evidence. To survive an environment where facts change daily, citizens must master a psychological discipline called doublethink. This is the ability to simultaneously hold 2 contradictory beliefs in your mind and accept both of them as completely true, even when presented with irrefutable evidence to the contrary. By controlling the past, the party controls the present. When a population is entirely severed from objective historical records, they lose their baseline for truth. The state becomes the sole architect of reality itself. Moving inward from the physical environment to the human mind, the party employs linguistic engineering. They introduce newspeak, a highly restricted vocabulary which functions not as a way to communicate, but as a deliberate mechanism to restrict cognition. This animation illustrates exactly how the process works. You can see a massive cluster of complex words entering a funnel. As words related to nuanced ideas pass through, they are actively deleted, leaving only a tiny output of basic compound terms like goodthink or crimethink. This approach relies on the concept that language shapes the way we perceive the world. By systematically stripping English down to purely utilitarian nouns and verbs, the party removes the specific words needed to articulate dissent. Newspeak reveals an incredibly effective form of censorship. The state doesn't need to burn treasonous books if they can ensure that the vocabulary required to write them no longer exists. Without the words to describe freedom or rebellion, the thoughts themselves become literally unconceivable. Winston and Julia believe they've found a safe haven in a rented room above a shop. Instead, they walk directly into a trap. The shop owner is an informant, and a high-ranking party member named O'Brien reveals himself as an agent of the thought police. Inside the Ministry of Love, O'Brien subjects Winston to brutal isolation and torture. He explains that the state has no interest in simply executing its enemies, because killing a dissident creates a martyr. The ultimate goal of the state is to psychologically break the prisoner down, cure them of their unorthodoxy, and completely convert them. The process culminates in Room 101. Here, O'Brien confronts Winston with his deepest, most primal fear. For Winston, this means a cage of starving rats, positioned inches from his face. Faced with absolute terror, Winston's instinct for self-preservation takes over. He screams for O'Brien to inflict the torture on Julia instead. He willingly sacrifices the only person he loves to save himself. This specific moment of betrayal is the entire point of the exercise. By forcing individuals to destroy their strongest bond, the state successfully hollows out their emotional core, leaving an empty vessel ready for total ideological compliance. Winston is eventually released back into society. His rebellion is entirely gone. He sits in a cafe, drinking gin, realizing that he finally feels genuine love for his oppressor, Big Brother. George Orwell published this novel in 1949. He wrote it as a direct critique of the brutalities he witnessed unfolding across the globe, aiming to illustrate the horrific logical endpoints of mid-20th century totalitarian regimes. He was specifically targeting authoritarian states, much like the Stalinist Soviet Union. Orwell saw firsthand how these systems prioritized the pursuit of absolute state power over the value of a human life. Today, the mechanics Orwell described feel incredibly recognizable. We navigate an age where mass digital data collection functions similarly to telescreens, continuously tracking our movements and activities. Meanwhile, political and corporate rhetoric is heavily sanitized with euphemisms, shaping public discourse by narrowing the boundaries of acceptable debate. The true terror of 1984 is the realization that the loss of liberty happens silently. It occurs when a populace is conditioned to slowly unlearn the language of freedom until they willingly embrace their own chains.